Welcome to the Battle Buddy Podcast with Keith McKeever.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Battle Buddy Podcast. I have Jason McCormick with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and some help that he got, and maybe a couple of interesting little tips for kind of dealing with triggers as they come up. So, without further ado, Jason, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your military story.
Hey, thanks, Keith, for having me on. Hey, yeah, my military story is similar to probably most of a lot of around our age group. In 1999, I joined, not sure what I was going to do, and and so I woke up one day in January of '99 and said, "Well, you know what? Let's join the service." And 2 weeks later, I'm in boot camp, beginning of February, and so starts the life of my journey in the military for 21 years. So I did a lot. I was a 19 Delta Cap Scout for 21 years. I rose through the ranks pretty good. Retired as Sergeant Major. And then, what really, for me, my first duty assignment was Germany. And I loved it. And it was the greatest time I've ever had. And so anyways, September 11th happened, which was one of the biggest changing events that changed, astronomically everybody in the United States. So we went to Threat Conduct, and that's when you really thought. And then from that point on, I went to Third ID, which was the tip of the spear for the invasion, and I just did every day. About every other year, I was deployed for a total of 61 months and 6 deployments. I did 2 to Iraq and then 4 to Afghanistan, and so it was a pretty rough time. A lot of those times, it was really challenging. And but anyway, so I did 21 years, and then went to the 82nd, and then finished up 10th Mountain, and then retired out of Purdue Army ROTC and then decided, hey, better get my education. So I have a wife and 3 kids. My wife's name's Christy. Then I have Bryce, Mackenzie, and Austin. And they're, now that I'm retired, that's my sole focus is because I've missed so much. Like I tell people, I've never seen any of my kids graduate or take their first steps. None of them. Never seen them say their first words or, any of that stuff. So it's for me, when I look back and now that I realize, this is the time that I have to be there for my kids and to whatever they need and try and be the best dad that I can, especially now that I've realized how bad my, PTSD and TBI really is.
Absolutely. So we'll back up to a second there.
Yes, sir.
You're at Purdue, ROTC. That must have been an interesting experience.
It's always an interesting experience.
It must have been a world-changing experience going from the intensity of the military to being on a college campus with a bunch of I guess I'll say wannabes at that point in time in their careers.
I came to that, and it was like I had a couple choices, and I said, "Wife, you pick them." And I was in that, and when I got that assignment, I was in Afghanistan in 2015-16, and I got that assignment, and I was like, "Man, what am I going?" So I told my wife where they're at, and she chose. That was my first, off the line job. For all my other deployments, I was getting after it, and then that was my first, what we call broadening assignment, and it was definitely broadening. It definitely opened my eyes. I had females working indirectly for me, but now I had females that I was actually teaching to become officers, and for me, that taught me so much that I've missed out my whole career, and so, but yeah, it was like you're right. It was definitely an eye opening for a bunch of young cadets. And it took me a while to break my first sergeant habits. When I got there, I was pretty, I was pretty knife-handish and strong with words.
You know what? They probably needed that though, right?
Yeah, they do. But I try not to do it to the freshmen because that scares them away from the program.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I say that for the upper, normally our juniors, they needed some good love.
Yeah, I want you to better get them prepared at some point in time, right?
That's right.
Like if we want them prepared, man, yeah, that's a weird experience. Because I went back to school 3 years ago. I just finished my bachelor's, so the first year and a half was on campus at a junior college, and it's just weird. Like, of course, I was in my early 30s at that point in time, but just to be, 12, 13, 14, 15 years older than all the other students, and you're like, wow, I almost got underwear older than you. Like,
Yeah,
it's like they're so immature. I literally saw people like walking into doors because they were looking at their phone when they walk all over the place. And it's just, even after 7 years of being out of the military, like there's just times I would just sit back in a chair, people watch, and I'd just be like,
trying to figure it out.
heck is going on with this generation?
Yeah.
Man, they're all weird,
It's like you're trying to figure it out. Like, what?
It's like you got to realize, okay, I am a little older. I got more of a grasp on who I am in this world and where I fit and what direction I'm going. And you got to realize, okay, between 18 and 24, you don't have a freaking clue about what you want to do in this life. They're just all those, most college kids, it seems like, don't really have much direction. They change their degree path once or twice and just kind of fumbling through it. I mean, it was like 30 by the time I really kind of figured out where I wanted to do in life. And, they got a long ways to go. So I knew when you said it, I was like, yeah, it had to be a crazy experience.
It was super challenging. I'm not like that, combat's challenging in all aspects, regular line, but that was a whole different challenge that I've never, ever experienced in my military career. I mean, I'm glad that, I wish I could have had it a little bit sooner in my career. That way I could have been really, developed me better as a person, as a whole, and that's all right though. Now I'm retired and have a beard and trying to live that, retired guy life about another month.
I'm sure you learned a lot of lessons during that process. But you went to school. You're going to school there at Purdue too, right? For your
yes, sir.
MBA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
That must be quite an experience there. So did you start going to school while you were also the instructor there?
No. So I got out, and when I retired in May of 2020, COVID was, initial stages of COVID was just booming, right? And I was like, so I thought I had a job lined up. It went away, and then I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and nobody's hiring. And I was like, it put me in pretty bad. June of that month was pretty bad for me. It put me in a pretty bad emotional state, like depression. And it took me, I went to another organization that called the Catalyst. And I went through them trying to redefine my skills, trying to get that. And that's when that organization really opened me up to realizing the skill sets that I have that we get from the military. And then helped me understand why I wanted to get an MBA so I can really make some changes in some organizations. That preferably, my end state would be, help out the VA, because I think there's a lot of help that can be done there. And I think that with that experienced veteran, being able to get in there, and have that edge, be able to talk their talk, but be able to still have that grounding, as a soldier or a sailor, airman, whatever, and a military personnel. Because a lot of those people up there, not all of them, they're civilians, and they only deal with veterans. They've never been the veterans. So there's a whole different flavor of that. So I think that's, my end state would be to working with the VA to ultimately make some changes that I think would benefit veterans as a whole, and maybe even, however I can do it. And that's my end state. So
awesome. I couldn't agree more that, there's nobody understands us like us.
Yep.
I was Air Force, you're Army, but we still understand each other.
Exactly.
It's different, just like different cultures and all stuff. But at the end of the day, nobody gets us and the challenges that we have like us. And some civilian who's just hired from some other corporate job to come in and do something to VA isn't going to quite understand that, unless maybe they, had some military in their family. They might understand a little bit more, but I'm sure their heart's in the right place. I'm not trying to say that they don't like care, but there's a little bit of a disconnect. Yeah, but you also mentioned skills in college, and that's something I think a lot of people need to realize, is that you get a lot of skills, and one of which is leadership. And I can say from my experience, I know I got a lot of leadership. I saw a lot of good leadership, saw a lot of bad leadership, learned from them, leadership courses, those things. But I didn't realize until I got into group projects, especially my last semester last year, group projects with, traditional college students in that 18 to 24 range. And I found myself leading everything.
Yeah.
I was setting everything up. I was guiding everything. I'm like, oh, here's our deadline. Here's today. Here's when this is due. Here's our checkpoints we need to reach. If you do this and you do that and you do that and you do that, everybody fine. Everybody's cool. All right. You know your instructions. Let's go do it. And then I would just get really angry when two of them would just never show up.
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't participate. But in the end, I got sweet justice on one of them. We made her go last on the group presentation, and she had not seen any of the slides.
Hey,
I had to turn my monitor off in Zoom and laugh at watching her fumble through it. And I was like, it's sweet justice.
Hey, sometimes it's the best way you can learn, and that's, but, I'm doing that Purdue's executive MBA program. And I mean, there's some professionals in there that I have learned more from those because they come from all backgrounds of industry and organizations and throughout the United States. And we even had one guy from South America. And I tell you, I've learned a lot about business. I thought I knew a little bit. Like, yeah, I got this leadership. Well, leadership's different in different organizations, and I didn't. It's all about how you conform to that. Your leadership style may not change, but you can conform to the leadership style in which an organization has set to effectively communicate with your subordinates or those below, your direct reports. That was another word, direct reports. Like, I had no clue what that was, and I've never heard that term before, and so that was one of the things that I had to, small things like that, and like, I never thought if they weren't the people, the students and the professors were not as professional as they were and understanding, and, they understood my background. They understand, the leadership aspect of what I had. But, some of the finer tunes of, accounting. Whoa, that's just like, you don't deal with that in the military, right? We don't deal with, accounting and, a 10K. I tell people all the time, I had no clue what a 10K was until halfway through our, we do a 2-week classroom portion with this MBA. And I had no clue what a 10K was for a while until I asked someone, and we're halfway through the course, that module. But again, you're right. You don't see it like with these, some people just don't have it. We have it too with, in that group too. A lot of people, they've sat in the back and, got through and never, had to utilize those leadership skills they had or they don't have, so you are spot on, brother.
Yeah. And it makes it difficult too. If you've got a strong skill that you just see in other peers around you not having it, just realize that you have those skills and they don't, and it's okay. Yeah. They just don't have those experiences in life.
Yeah.
And just don't let it bother you. Because I will tell you, I let it bother me last fall. It bothered me really bad. I was like, I just can't understand why they can't show up. Like, why are they late? Why don't they show up? Why don't they contribute? It's like everything was done through Google Drive. Everybody had access to it. I made sure that everybody was in there at one point in time and it worked. So I was like, what is the problem? I just don't get it, But, something I was thinking of when you're saying it is like different leaderships, different things. Like the knife hand does not work in college with regular students.
Right.
It's not going to work in the boardroom.
Yeah, it's not going to work when I'm trying to, talk to a CEO about, their quarterly earnings or something. And I go, listen, you need to understand this, young man.
Yeah. They're just going to call security on you.
Yeah.
Then things get real interesting. Yeah. It's an experience for all those that think about getting out and going to college. Just prepare yourself. It's going to be a different world. And you're just immersing yourself in it. So, but back to the topic at hand. You're probably going all day about experiences and pet peeves that I learned in college for 3 years.
Right.
Your TBI. Let's go with that. What's the story on that? And when did it click to you that you knew you had a TBI? Was it right after? Did it take a little while down the road?
Well, with all those deployments, I've been in 6 IEDs. 3 of them I got, recorded in my military, and it's just, you never know, and I've been beside, dismounted IEDs that's went off on some of my, on soldiers who lost their legs. And I've been 3 or 4, V-bids have been right there, right next to me. And, I just never thought about TBI. I can still think, I can still do stuff, And I, through over the years, it just kept getting, like steadily worse. But I was like, I'm still, up in the upper half of, my peer group, being very successful. So I was like, well, let's not challenge anything. Let's just keep moving on. And then when I was at Purdue, I from operational readiness, we slowed down a lot. You're not going out to the field all the time. You're not. So when we slowed down, I started noticing that I was forgetting a lot. My short-term memory is bad. I just couldn't. I was just not with it. I would find myself stargazing, and not understanding that I'd have to come back in and get myself, back to where I was. And it started taking me longer to do tasks as I went on through that. And I noticed that, and not till I got out, I met one of my, a friend here locally. His name's Dominic Otto. And he was like a brother to me now, because he ended up having the TBI when he got blown up back in, I think it was 2004 when he was in Iraq, or maybe later. Can't really remember. But anyways, he got a TBI, and we were talking at breakfast one day, because we started we used to do breakfast once a week, so we check up on each other and stuff like that. And then I told him about some of my experiences, and he saw a little bit of it, and he recommended me to go, I think you might have TBI, man, and, because, the VA said I got PTSD pretty bad. And I said, well, I mean, I probably should have it, based off what I've done and been through. But I never thought of the TBI aspect of it, and how that affects you, and how that affects, and how it only multiplies the PTSD. And so, and so he recommended me. I called them, talked to, started a conversation with the Marcus Institute for Brain Health. It's out in Colorado, part of Colorado University. So I talked to them, and they said, hey, come out for 1 week. We'll try and get you out here due to, COVID. We'll see what we can do. This was October of 20. And so I went out there. I did a week's worth of very fast-paced evaluations, from physical therapy to speech therapy, speech pathology, to mental health. What else was there? There's a couple other ones. Art therapy, which I can go into that right there. That's a whole. I'll save that for the end, and we can go over that. And
there's a lot of benefits in that.
Yeah, and I'll bring a picture over here. I have, and I'll share that with the group, and what it did to me and how it changed me. So, anyways, and they sat me down at the end. And they brought my wife in, which was really awesome, and they went over everything they found with us, and they said, hey, you'd be a good candidate, extremely good candidate for our organization, for us to help you. And they explained that I had TBI, traumatic brain injury, and they wanted to work with us, and us being me and my wife. So I was like, okay, well, some time went by, things happened, and I normally try to bring you back a month or two, so that way it just stays the continuation. But I didn't get back until April. And so I went back out there and went on for a 3-week intensive outpatient therapy process with them. So
I really like the fact that they included your wife in it. I mean, it makes sense, but I could see where some programs maybe don't do that. So I'm assuming they had her in there for counseling sessions and stuff with you, and like all along the whole path.
Well, they normally bring the wife out for the last week of the intensive outpatient.
Okay.
Because of COVID protocols, they really couldn't. And so at the time,
once again, messing everything up.
Yeah, so it was all Zoom. But they brought her in for the last day of the evaluation, what they normally do, because you're so fast paced. It's I mean, you're really going like 100 miles an hour during the evaluation process, and you're emotionally spent. Like your mind is like I've never felt so drained non-physically in my life. Like my head hurt. It's just all the tests they put you through. I mean, it's nothing bad. It's just it makes you think and evaluate and do different things. They have a little globe that had holes in it, and it would spin in different directions, and you would have to focus at a certain point, and they could tell by the way your body moved and how all this,
Wow.
Yeah. And they had another machine that they had me on where the platform moves, and you have to, close your eyes and visualize yourself staying center. And your body moves naturally because of that. And I was pretty bad. And I never thought, I thought I just had balance issues, right? Just, I'm old. I need to stretch some more, do some, no, it's because of the TBI, because your body believes you're center and you're not. And so, because you just, I don't know. It's
kind of knocks your equilibrium off or something like that.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Okay. Wow. That's really neat.
Yeah. And so
science is amazing.
Yeah. Right.
Almost sounds like fun. Like I just kind of want to go do it just to see if I fall over. Like that sounds like really strange and cool, and can't imagine how that freaking works. But
that was physical therapy, and that was it's not traditional. We think physical therapy. This was cognitive physical therapy. One of the tests I still remember was a laser. So you put a laser around your head, and they put a bullseye there, and you had to try and keep it in the center, and like step up or turn your head, or like turn your body and try and keep your head and your eyes right on that center. Oh man, I couldn't even do it. Like it was because my body was just so everywhere.
That sounds like a game that you would get some laser pointers, some duct tape, and a bunch of drunk people at a party.
I like that. Yeah, your idea. Let's do this.
Hey.
Doesn't matter what surface. We all like to drink. We all like to party, right?
Exactly. Like my mind's like, I'm trying to imagine this because I haven't seen it, and I'm just like, okay, lasers, bullseye. Like I could just imagine a bunch of drunk troops trying to do that in the dorm now. Well, if you get in trouble, don't drop my name.
Yeah, we don't condone it, but wink.
I'm trying to grow my show, okay, not have the military pissed off at me.
They've probably done it themselves, so it's
make sure you're of age. Kick the underage people out. Take it from the old guys. Like, this is going to save you a lot of headache. Just don't have the underage people there.
Yep. Yes, sir.
But wow, that's some crazy. I guess I can see, why they're doing some of those tests, but this, once again, science. It's just strange.
Well, another thing they said that really blew my mind was, do you avoid going to shopping, going shopping with your wife? I'm like, yeah, what man doesn't? And they're like, what about grocery shopping, right? And I'm thinking, grocery shopping? What are you talking about?
As long as we hit the cookie aisle or the chip aisle, like I'll go.
Well, they say that when you're there, that it's hard for you to walk in a straight line. And because of all the different visuals and everything else, your body is all messed up. And I can't remember that word for it, but anyways, so there's some places, other organizations actually have an aisle that they have you walk down, and that watches, like a virtual reality, and they watch your eyes and how you perform, because before I even could get anything out, she's like, you're a guy that goes in, gets what you need, and gets out, right? You don't like to walk around every aisle and all that. She goes, and if you do, because your wife wants you to, do you feel exhausted and tired, or maybe a little angry or upset at the end? And I said, yeah.
Every freaking time.
Yeah. I said, that's not going to be my wife, though. And she's like, no, I promise you, it's because you avoid the uncomfortableness that you're feeling as you're doing it. And I was like, wow, holy goodness. Yeah. And
that's weird, especially the question of like going in and just grab what you want. It's like that's 99% of guys there. Like, just I know what I want. Like I know what aisle it's in. I'm going for it. So I don't need to go up every single aisle.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'll never forget when they said it took me walking in a straight line takes about 20% of my brain power to walk a straight line. And then they said, now when you increase that with other stuff going on around you, it's almost like 30% of your brain power just to stay focused in to try and walk a straight line. And I noticed a lot, for me, is certain floor patterns just throw me off, and I can barely, I get really dizzy, or I get nauseous.
Is it the ones, like some places will have like a primary color, and then they'll have like little patches of like in accent colors, that ones like that will throw you off?
Checkered stuff, or
I can see that.
And we were in there's a couple hotels, and my kids play baseball, so we were traveling, and their floors were like that, and it just I never really thought about it till after, until I came back from that, and we'd get in there, and I'd see myself trying to, I'd be dizzy, and I'd be like, man, and I'm like, well, there it is. That's that type of, part of the symptoms of of what they told me. And
So like the colorful swirls in the carpet in hotels, like all hotels have, it seems like.
I just close my eyes and walk.
Yeah.
I'm like, wife, bleed me. No.
You could be safer.
Well, I've just learned to, and that's part of the things, when you go back for the, 3-week intensive outpatient, is they teach you focusing. Like we would walk down a long hallway with a stick, right? Oh, matter of fact, here it is. It had a little E on the back of it. And you just hold that out here like this at eye level, and you would walk focusing on it. And then you would, turn your head, and, they'd give me different focal points as we walked, and I'd have to turn and up, down, and everywhere. And that would keep me, at first I was really dizzy. I would almost fall because you're focusing so hard that when you have something, they tell you to look somewhere else, you lose it and you go right towards that. And there's a couple times I almost fell over in the beginning. But as we did the physical therapy and we did everything else, we were able to move everything around. And I could walk, clearly, as long as I had a focal and I could channel a lot of energy, there at the end. But it was amazing to learn, just a simple trick with a popsicle stick and use that. I still do it here at home every now and then, is I'll get it out and I'll walk and I'll challenge myself, because if I don't, you're not, you start to regress, and well, I don't want to regress, and I want to keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then I'd say probably half the battle is just knowing, just being aware of what bothers you, what affects you, how these things affect you. It's like, honestly, you're blowing my mind right now. I never would have thought about floor patterns and walking straight and the amount of brain power. Makes sense. I would have never thought about that.
I didn't either. I'm just a dumb, dumb grunt. I just don't like my wife. That's why I don't like going to the grocery store, And I here to find
nobody. Why go for 3 hours when I can go in for 30 minutes?
Yeah, right. No, and I notice now that I go in with a grocery cart, and I normally, and they don't want me to, but it's for my benefit, so I can keep myself centered on something, and I allow myself to relax a little bit more instead of being a little more uptight. That's what worked for me. We're all different, so.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's those are some neat tips. So is there anything that you tried for treatments before actually going to the Marcus Institute? No. Anything that you found? Nothing? Anything?
No, I didn't even know. I was like, I'm perfectly fine. And here to find out, when I went there, and I tried to do some research and understand some stuff before, but again, I was swamped with schoolwork. So I was like, all right, I'll just keep, figuring this out.
Never really tried anything.
Yeah. But then when I went there, it was challenging because I had schoolwork I still had to do too, but I was able to really put some stuff into practice because I'd be stressed out and I'd be, just everywhere. Like some of them, like we were, like tapping, like we talked a couple different things, where you tap here and then you tap on your forehead and you feel stressed out. And, of course the therapist is like, oh, you can do that anywhere, and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not going to do that, So,
yeah. Like I joked about earlier, I'm not going to go into Walmart and start tapping myself on the forehead because people are going to think you're nuts.
Yeah. And then next thing I'm explaining to some guy and I'm in handcuffs, what's going on,
Actually, days of COVID, help you social distance by acting crazy.
Yeah.
So you see anybody in the aisle with you, just start tapping yourself on the forehead, just make eye contact with them. Really freak them out? Guarantee they'll probably leave the aisle. They'll be like, this guy's nuts.
Yeah. And so one of the things they did teach me, that I found useful for myself is just finding that pressure point on your thumb, between your thumb and your index finger there. And I just rub that. And, when I start feeling a little stressed out or a little triggered at certain points, and you can do that sitting at a table, nobody's, your hands are crossed like this and you're just, there's a little rub, a little pinch. And I do that for a couple seconds and it helps ground me, and that's, one of the best things, for me when I'm out and about, I'm in a meeting or, something's a little, gets me a little agitated or something. That for me, that's me. But you could be somebody else that likes this thing they call Cook's hold up, where you do something like this with your hand and you rotate it down like this. I'm just not. That seems like a little bit of yoga to me, right? But,
yeah. Sounds to me like I'd get it all twisted up and get my arms all locked somehow.
Yeah, but I'm hurt.
Really funny.
And I'm put myself in pain. That's pretty awkward, you know.
And maybe if you're younger and you don't have like joint pain yet or anything like that, like maybe that's good for those
right?
guys and gals. But
Yeah, no, you're right.
maybe,
You're right.
yeah, be
And
cautious
so,
of those things.
yeah, there's just small things like that, you know, that they taught me to work on between physical therapy um, and with a little of the mental health stuff to help you really find those triggers. Like they really helped me find my triggers. Like when I get overwhelmed with so much work, they taught me how to slow down. Like they taught me how to do a planner, a different type of planner. You know, highly important, not important. You know, and for my task to do list to help me really channel the important stuff in the day, stuff that I have to get done, stuff that I would like to get done, and stuff that if I can get a chance to, I can, or not, I can put it off to tomorrow, which really helped me organize myself because a lot of people with TBI have problems organizing themselves, and they're very, and that's where, when I did speech pathology, she could tell by the way I wrote, how my mind, like that's another thing is when I was writing stuff out, she'd have me write sentences when they were testing me, and the way I crossed words out, if I messed up, how many times I messed up, or wrote stuff backwards and everything like that. She analyzed that and gave me feedback and said it's common for the mind to be messed up like that. But then we worked on that stuff, the organizational strategies. Like I never had a day planner or a weekly planner or anything like that. I just had like a calendar or like put everything on a Outlook, and then there was never any priorities except for like if somebody said, "Hey, here's a hot 50-meter target, and I need you to engage and get it done right now." Boom, and get it done, knock it out. But once I learned to get myself more organized or into a rhythm, a rhythm, I was able to really see myself start getting a little bit more clarity. I was more relaxed. I wasn't so agitated, which that goes back into the PTSD too. Some of the similarities, between PTSD and TBI is being agitated, over certain things or people, and normally stressors and triggers. And so it helps you keep yourself, for me, it kept me more organized and started making me able to accomplish more and able to see myself and to know the triggers if I started adding too much to my plate, and that's one of the things that I noticed is I was doing like 15 to 20 things, I was different organizations or things that I was involved in. So I had to cut some things back or find something simpler that didn't take as much power as, say, something that I really cared about. So
there's a lot to unpack in that one.
Yeah.
Because I've got some similarities to things in my life and tips that I've found as you're saying that, because over the last couple of years, I've had things in my life like my homeowners association. I was the president of that for 6 years. And the last probably 2 years of it, I was totally done and checked out. Did not want to do it, but nobody else would take over. And finally, just got to the point, I just told them I will not seek re-election. I'm done. I'm going to step down for a year, be a board member, and then we'll see. And I realized it was important for me to get rid of that stress. Like first couple of years, it was no big deal. It was just me doing my thing. I had great people on the board, very well-ran board for the most part.
Yeah.
But it was just too much stress. With all the other things that were more important, it was the easy thing to cut out. I was like, I got to be done. For me personally, for my family, everything has got to be done. And then the other thing that jumped to my mind was my calendar. What's always worked for me is I use Google Calendar, and I've got everything color coordinated. So anything for this podcast or recording a video is yellow. Yeah. Anything, as a realtor, anything that's showing a house or on an appointment at somebody's house for work is in bright red. If I time block something for work, just where I'm going to be at my office or something, an hour doing this, I put it in blue. And then personal appointments, doctor's appointments, whatever, taking my kids to the bus, that's all green. Yeah. My wife, if she has a client in the house, because she has services upstairs as an esthetician, all her stuff's in purple. So that one doesn't really matter in the calendar. It's just I can look at it and be like, oh, she's got a couple of clients this day, a couple of clients that day. I can look at it and know exactly who's where and when. Yeah. When I got to pick up the kids, whatever, because it's all color coordinated and it's all blocked in time. And I know that, oh, you know what? Monday at 9 a.m., I'm doing this from 9 to 10. And from 10 to 12, I'm doing some planning. And then I'm working on XYZ in the afternoon. Like, that's it. That's my day. And I block it. I set it up as I go, but I look every day and I look at the next 3 days and I'm like, do I need to shift things around? Is this going to take me longer than I thought? Or do I have client needs that need to take the place of that, and I move it, right? So it's like
Absolutely.
a juggling piece, but it's bright, it's colorful, and it's easy to just look at.
You're right, and
it's available on my phone, my computer, everywhere I look.
we have an app actually for our kids and everybody to put their stuff in. It's called I think Family App or Family Calendar. I don't know, something like
Family
that.
Link or something like that. Yeah,
it's called Family Calendar, and everybody's linked into it. And so I have my own calendar, and then my own calendar links into that one. So it's kind of nice for me. So I go there, but me and my wife, every Sunday we sit down and we go over the week. So that way I write everything down on my calendar weekly, unless it's something that's repeatable. So that way I know exactly what's going on. We talk through stuff saying, hey, this is where I'm going to need your help, Jason. And I'm like, well, I got this, or I don't have this. And so it was really awesome to be able to, once we started that, it even helped me and my wife, helped us out with our relationship, a little bit more. It opened up more of a communication, because we talked, but it was just short stuff, but we really started to talk more because this actually, me finding out about myself and TBI has made us closer than what we've been in the last 10 years as a married couple. So,
I can see that. And sitting down and spending that time together to plan and make sure everybody's on the same page, and that communication, that's huge to do that. I think more people could probably do that.
Yeah.
I know I need to do that more, like, just be more on the same page with your spouse.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit to the whole realizing and going through this healing process where it helps too. I know I've noticed that, but how did you think that affected your wife? Like, how was it more immediate, or did it take a little bit more time? Like, how receptive was she to everything, I guess?
She understood, she knew about the PTSD, and we talked about that when I found out I had it pretty bad. But we never thought about the TBI until my buddy Don brought it up. And what that did was, and I talked to her about it. She didn't really understand a lot about it. But then when we talked after the evaluation, they talked to her and told her about the brain power and all this other stuff and why she's probably frustrated. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated about this. And you're like, it's like you're reading my mind. And she goes, well, these are very common with people with, brain injuries. And so I was like, okay. It started opening up a dialogue, and we weren't sure how long it was going to take for this. And they told us it's going to take a while, for me to really get, into a groove to start, recovering or dealing with the symptoms or whatnot. And so it actually, then when she spent that last week, visiting and seeing how I was doing different exercises or how and why we did them, because they would explain it to my wife. I'd have that last week, I had 1 or 2 things every day, and she'd be invited so she could see my physical therapy. She could be in with my counseling with my counselor there, and then and she started to understand more. And I think that was, for me, I could see like a light bulb going off with both of us, understanding each other. I understood her, she understood me, and it just really helped us out tremendously.
I figured it would, if she could understand it, because it can be frustrating, I'm sure, to sit there as a spouse and be like, why are you doing this? Why are you acting this way? Why this? Why that?
Yeah.
But if you can understand why a little bit from somebody else's perspective, I think you can just be like, it is what it is. I may not fully ever understand, but I understand that something's going on and that the brain is perceiving things in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's what's, I think, been weird to me is it's just, the brain works in such a weird way. It's crazy, but it's just how you perceive the world around you and how you react to it. And it's like, most of that stuff, it's overreaction.
Yeah.
To stimulus.
Yeah.
But you have no control over it, or very little control over it.
Yeah.
But I guess if you can see those triggers, you try the trick, right?
Yeah, try it. Hey, if it works for you, hey, I hope it works. Like I have a whole page, like 10 pages here on different things to do. I can, but some of them just ain't me. I'm just not a big, that's just not me.
I might find some YouTube videos of some different tips like that. See if I can find something and put it on the website under the resource page, because that's good stuff to know. I never thought about that. Heck, my counselors never even brought that up.
Yeah.
So that's some new stuff right there.
Yeah. It's just
Get
different
angry,
ways.
just try something.
Say again.
I said, if you start getting angry, just try something.
Yeah.
And try something healthy, not drugs,
Yeah.
alcohol, any of that stuff. That's probably not the route to go. Try the pressure points, the tapping on the forehead, whatever works for you. Talking to somebody, quiet room, go walk around a little bit, and do what you got to do. So,
Yeah. I never thought of that stuff. I mean, it was like that. The Market Institute was a godsend for me. Like, it really allowed me to, one, focus on me for 3 weeks and to seek the help that I knew that I needed, and to really, pretty much almost start my relationship over with my wife and kids, and realize how important, I can say they're important, but I used to categorize, being in the Army, I tried to have that work-life balance, but I just didn't have it. And to me, I think, I was a bad husband and a father, because I just always wanted to, be successful in the military, in my career, and expected them to, follow. And I never really fully comprehended, that work-life balance. And until, I retired, and then going through different courses like the Catalyst, and then doing Marcus, and talking to other people, and preparing myself for the civilian side.
I had a conversation with somebody about a week ago, speaking of this like work-life balance, because it's not a 50-50 balance. It's, whatever works for your life. But I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. It's something along the lines of equating time with that quality with your family.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have a 50-50 balance of time, because even if you spend 50% of your time with your family, you might not be spending it in a quality way.
Yeah.
Like, figure out what they want, what's really important to them, and spend that time with them. You can spend 3 hours a week with one of your kids if it's doing something they really, really love, and it can be more valuable time than spending the whole darn week with them, on vacation or something like that. So it's not a 50-50 mix. And when he said that, I was like, wow, that's right. You can work 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
And go work out and do all these other things and volunteer and be gone 80, 90 hours a week. You could, and still have a perfect relationship with your wife and kids, if you're spending that time wisely and fully devoting it to them in the quality time that they need.
Yeah, sometimes we get confused with quality over quantity, and that's a big thing. We think, oh, if I spend more time, it's going to be better. Well, maybe it's not, because you're distracted by this or by that. So you're actually then, by allowing yourself to be more distracted by trying to give quantity, you're actually doing more damage, and realistically, to your kid and your wife, because you said, one, I want to spend this much time with you, but then in return, you're actually doing other stuff and not really showing a vested interest in getting quality from that time.
All right, take like little kids, right? I mean, you could spend half the day sitting on the couch, you on one end, your kid on the other, watching all the Disney movies they want, right? That may not be really what they want, because you're not really connecting. You're not, may not, could be what they really want, but may not be.
Yeah.
Or maybe what they really want is just you to play an hour of Minecraft with them, or some other video game. That might be the absolute best thing that they've been looking forward to.
Absolutely.
So it's, because you might not be present in the first one. You're just there in the room, not engaging, not connecting.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Absolutely. That's one of the things, my son plays Fortnite, my youngest does. And that's one of the things. I'll go up there and I'll spend time with them, and I'll be like, hey, I'm going to be your tactical advisor today. And I was, just simple, like, hey, stay in the low ground, bounce from tree to tree, and of course, I don't understand the whole building stuff and all that. So I just tell him just to go, bonsai, and I run straight at him and just start shooting him, and he's like, yeah, that's not how it's. But I stuff like that, 2 or 3 games, we're laughing and making fun. That's may not be exact quality that we're looking for, or we go, play baseball, or sometimes we just go for a drive, and I just allow him to talk, and sometimes that's probably pretty good for him, because some kids just don't get, I try and teach them that difference between having that father. I said, you need to vent sometimes too. That's one of the things that I've when we were growing up, you're not allowed. You just shut up and go. You can't talk. Right? And I've learned that I'm trying to make him better than me. I'm trying to make all my kids, and that's why tell people when I meet you, my goal and we shake hands is to make you better than me, because I think that's, if we look at it that way as a society, we're going to so we can change society to a better place. And I like to start with my kids, because those are my kids, and like I'm forcing them all. I'm not forcing them. I'm giving them options. 3 options: trade school, college, or the military. Those are your 3 options in life when you graduate. But anyways, back to the quality time. I've noticed that because my oldest boy, he was 6 months when I first deployed to Iraq for the invasion, and I talked to my wife twice during 6 months during that deployment. And he turned 1, took his first step, said his first words. Everything that happens there during that time. And there were 2 phone calls. I think one was in May and one was in July, saying I was coming home. So it was that, and I realized at that point that I needed to, I only seen like 5 of his birthdays till I took the ROTC gig, and he turned, I think 15. So only half his birthdays I was physically able to be there because I did a training or deployed. That's when I realized some of the quality stuff. So we started going hunting, fishing, just being together and talking was really, you're right. It's not about quantity, and that's when but I still kept that mindset of work. So I wasn't able to place them first. And then when I retired and through this, this process, of TBI and, PTSD, I learned what the most important things are. And that's my priority now. I still want to, get that job at the VA, help take care of veterans and make some changes. But my family's going to, I'm going to place their priorities over a lot of stuff, try and find that balance, even if it's, the quality is what actually, my boy went and tried out for a baseball team and for college in Arkansas. So it was a 9-hour road trip with us. And it was an exciting and crazy time. We had a blast. I let him drive. He took us out in Timbuktu. He said his GPS got us there. We were like driving down a dirt road. And I'm like, how are we driving on a dirt road, son? There's no dirt roads unless you're lost.
It's pretty good advice for life right there.
And I woke up, right? I was taking a nap because I was tired. And I woke up and we're on a dirt road. And I'm like, son, why are we on a dirt road? There's no dirt roads on it. Anyways, it was a good laughing moment, and we had a great time. And just stuff like that you get to, I wouldn't be able to do that 3 years ago in the military, because we've been in training, or I wouldn't be able to get off, because I'd feel guilty taking that much time off to do something like that. And put a strain on my wife and that burden on her, which would then strain our relationship, right? And so, which is kind of cool now that I can actually jump in on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can't do anything about the past.
Yep.
But you can do something about the future.
Right. Absolutely.
That's something that's some universal advice for everybody there. Anybody who listens, that figure out what those needs are of your family members.
Yeah.
And they're all going to be different. There's all love languages. People like different things, just value different things, and just be there for them, whether it's cuddling on the couch or watching a movie, or like I said, just a quiet Sunday drive. Whatever works for them. I know my kids. I got 2 boys. If I said I was going to the store, they both want to go. Yeah. Also because I don't know if they want to go because of me, or if they just want to go get away from their brother. But but they want to jump at that opportunity to get out, different environment, and it makes sense. So absolutely. Family. So that's awesome, Jason. I appreciate you coming here and talking about this, sharing your story, and telling us about the Marcus Institute, because it's really cool. I'm going to have to do some more research and add them to the mental health page of the podcast website. And yes, sir. I think you said you got some other links, so feel free to send whatever you got over.
Absolutely.
Because I'm all about just providing. I want this podcast to be just part of the resource hub of what I'm building, just to be a place where people can find stuff for free. I don't charge nothing for this website, obviously. You can listen free. You can watch free. All the resources on my website are free. Nobody pays to advertise on there. It is strictly for the veteran community, because I'm tired of seeing people struggle. So more resources we put on there, the better. So listeners, if you got something, send it to me. Send it to me, please, because I want to put good resources, good projects, right? And this is through a college. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of science and research backed up in it. So, if you've got a problem in that, that's a good place to turn to.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's one of many, universities around the country doing things like that. So I got some research ahead of me now. Thanks, Jason.
hey.
I got to see who else is doing something like that, right?
Yeah,
I got to see what all these resources are, because it can be helpful.
It's good though. I'm really, I follow you. I've been following you for a while, and what you're doing is amazing, brother. I mean, I can't even begin to think of how awesome and where you're going from when I remember when we first talked, you're just starting out, and to see where you're at now is just simply amazing, brother. You're going in the right direction. You're doing what
slow and steady growth,
and what veterans need. And I think that's, awesome that you're willing to do what you're doing with the Battle Buddy podcast and the webpage. Brother, I just thank you. Thank you from another veteran.
Well, thanks. It's just, I'm just doing what I can. I think that's what we all should do. We should all look out for each other and do what you can.
Yep.
Maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's a vlog. Maybe it's just having a little packet of, non-perishable food in a warm blanket that you can give away to somebody, find a homeless vet on the street. I don't know. Do what you can to make the world better today and do it again tomorrow. Yes, even if it's the little actions build up, right?
Yeah.
So, that's what we all got to keep doing. Just like your plans of working at the VA, making some changes, right? It's going to take a bunch of people to make huge changes, but you don't make any changes unless, you plant the seed.
That's right. That's right. Yes,
awesome.
Sir.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Like I said, you ever get any resources, send it my way. I would love to highlight those things on the website.
Yes, sir. I'll send that book too. Once a warrior, always a warrior to you. And that's a great book for you, for people to read. It really drills down into it. It helps spells. My wife's read it. It gives that mindset, lets you into, others and yourself into where we're at with, PTSD and TBI, especially for that soldier and a married couple.
Like I said, before we hit record, I'm going to have to go find that on Audible and use one of those credits I got, see if it's on there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I went to public school, right? It's easier to read.
I got you. Right on, brother. Right
even
on.
Though I was Air Force, I still take the easy route out to this point.
I figured you'd be super educated if you're Air Force. No.
Those guys got the good jobs. They just gave me a gun and said, "Watch the plane."
Yeah. Right on, brother.
Awesome. I wanted to do that too. That's the weird part. I guess that shows the intelligence.
I knew I chose the wrong career, wrong branch when I went to Doha in the invasion, and we went to go eat, and we went to the Air Force. It was Air Force ran it, and I went to go take my tray up, and they're like, "No, just leave it there. Somebody will grab it for you." And I was like, "Stop!" And yeah, somebody. It was the best food I had, like real glasses, not plastic ones. I was like, Air Force got it going on. What have I been doing?
I realized I made the right choice.
You did.
My first
jealous.
Redeployment training was in Fort Lewis, and we get there, and they got these old white World War II barracks with peeling paint and trough urinals, open stall showers, and we go get some chow, and they got the chow hall building. It probably should have been condemned, opened up. They walked in, and I think everything was half liquid. Just get slopped on the tray. And I remember just a lot of us just looking at each other like, what is this?
That's a good meal for us.
Like, we're supposed to drink this? Actually didn't taste that bad. I will say that. Most of it didn't taste that bad. But we looked at it just like, I will say, you go to an Air Force chow hall and you get eggs. They tend to be real eggs. They didn't come out of a can or a bag or anything like that.
Right.
They were, real eggs hatched from a chicken at one point. So yeah, it was a wild experience.
Right on. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again.